Well, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth doubling down on those attacks on those Venezuelan shipping boats, those fishing boats, or whatever they're calling them, narco boats, right? Narco-terrorism boats. That's the word. And this morning, or last night, Pete Hegseth tweeted this: for your Christmas wish list, this AI generated Franklin targets narco-terrorists. I think, by the way, isn't Franklin like a Canadian turtle? I think it's like a Canadian kids lineup. So that's funny, right? So many people ratioed him in the comments saying this is not funny at all. This is what we're doing now with no justification and no proof at all that we are being attacked as a result of these boats. Well, the Washington Post published this piece. Hegseth order on first Caribbean boat strike, officials say, kill them all. As two men clung to a stricken, burning ship targeted by Navy SEAL Team 6, the Joint Special Operations Commander followed the Defense Secretary's order to leave no survivors. So that first strike took out the boat, and then as these survivors are swimming away, another strike killed those individuals swimming away. According to the Washington Post, Secretary of Defense Hegseth gave the verbal order to kill anyone who survives a first strike.
Yeah, can't have anybody to talk.
Yeah, can't have anybody at all to talk because we need to make sure that there's no voices, right? We got to take them all out. So President Trump was asked about this on Air Force One, and his response was weird because at first he said he didn't know anything about it, but then he went on to say basically he knew all about it. I don't know. Here was President Trump's response to this. Watch.
Said he did not want them. He didn't even know what people were talking about. So we'll look into it. But no, I wouldn't have wanted a second strike. The first strike was very legal. It was fine. And if there were two people around, but Pete said that didn't happen.
Does that make
I have great confidence.
You saying
there's
no second strike?
I don't know. I'm going to find out about it. But Pete said he did not order the death of those two men.
Do you have any concerns about how those boat strikes have been carried out at all?
Very little, because you can see the boats, you can see the drugs in the boats, and each boat is responsible for killing 25,000 Americans. So and they're doing an amazing job. And you know we're getting.
So I don't know anything about it, but I know everything about it. Pete said he didn't authorize the killing of those individuals. Okay. Well, Karen Leavitt was asked about it today, so was refuting the Secretary of War, his position on this. Like, what's the truth in all of this story? It seems like they're throwing Admiral Bradley under the boat, so to speak. Listen to her response.
So that's why you've seen a drastic difference in this administration's policy with respect to the last, and it's one of the many reasons the American public reelected this president and support this Secretary of War in conducting these strikes.
So to be clear, to clarify, Admiral Bradley was the one who gave that order for a second strike.
And he was well within his authority to do so.
And a separate question, the president several days ago said it was his intention to...
So he gave the order for that second strike. Okay. Let's bring in Daniel McAdams now, from the Ron Paul Institute and host of the Liberty Report. Great to see you, sir. Welcome back to the show, as always.
No, thanks for having me back. It's always great to join you guys.
So from a libertarian perspective, a legal perspective, what authority does Secretary of War, the President of the United States, have to carry out these extrajudicial killings of these narco boats off the coast of Venezuela? Like, just from a legal perspective, what authority do you think they have?
Well, they're non-combatants, even if they were carrying drugs, and we've seen no proof they are carrying drugs. People have commented it's awfully strange to see 10 or 11 guys on a boat taking up so much space that it could be used taking up with drugs. But even if they were, they're not combatants according to the laws of war. And it's ironic because the same people who rightly criticize President Obama for his drone strikes, his drone strike Tuesdays, who am I going to take out this week, are silent on this or encouraging it. And in fact, Clayton, the thing is that this double strike is very, very serious, and it looks like an admission of war crimes. That's probably why poor old Admiral Bradley is now on the hook for the whole thing, even though Hegseth was taking a lot of credit for it. The idea of shooting at a shipwreck is considered so egregious that it actually is in the Law of War Manual of the Department of Defense. It's section 18.3.2.1, where it specifically points out, for example, orders to fire upon the shipwrecked would be clearly illegal. That's in the Pentagon's own manual. So it's a textbook case, according to their own rules, of doing something completely egregious and illegal. They have got some serious problems on their hands right now.
I'm pulling this right up here. This is the Department of Defense Law of War Manual. The requirement to refuse or to comply with orders to commit law or war violations applies to orders to perform conduct that is clearly illegal, or orders that subordinate knows in fact are illegal. For example, orders to fire upon the shipwrecked would be clearly illegal. I mean, you couldn't get more specific than that. Shipwrecked. Do not fire. You've blown up their ship. Now they're shipwrecked. This is a war crime to then fire on those individuals. So whoever ordered it, it's a war crime. And I guess the Department of War, the Defense Law, War Manual, specifically saying it is incumbent upon these sailors to say no, that would be a war crime, sir. We cannot, under the Department of Defense Law War Manual that I signed as a cadet or whatever, I'm not allowed to carry this out. This is a war crime, sir. I'm sorry, I won't do that. Because if it would go to a court-martial, it wouldn't be the sailor that gets in trouble. It would be the commander, no?
It would be. And I mean, and according to Nuremberg, the Geneva Conventions, even if you want to go beyond the Law of War Manual, I mean, there's a reason these things are in place. And it's not just to protect foreigners, it's also to protect Americans who may find themselves in similar situations. So I think a lot of this tempest in a teapot over the so-called seditious six, of course, the Democrats are trying to make political points on this. They frankly don't give a damn about the laws of war either. They're trying to make political points, but they essentially are making a good point. You are obligated to refuse to carry out illegal orders, and blowing boats out of the water without due process is unconstitutional on its face, and it's illegal. It's an illegal act. And the fact that someone like Pete Hegseth is glorifying it, is putting out children's cartoons with them blowing up people on boats, is really beneath the dignity of the office. And we've had some people in that office that are pretty undignified, right? Yeah. We've had Austin, we've had Rumsfeld, we had Cheney, we've had some undignified people, but they look like great statesmen compared to the person who's currently occupying that position.
You know, dead men tell no tales, right? It's the Pirates of the Caribbean, you know. And so when I see the manufacturing of consent for war, because, you know, people in the chat will be like, oh, don't be a snowflake. These are narco-terrorists. Okay, prove it, number one. Show me the evidence. Show me that they're any kind of a threat to the United States at all. Show me that we want to send men and women of the United States military to die for this propaganda. But they're of no threat to the United States at all, as Senator Rand Paul has pointed out. But the point seems to be, the manufacturing of consent for war seems to be that if none of these people can tell a tale, they're all killed, then our manufacturing consent for war works, right? We can say they're heading for Miami right now with all of this fentanyl. It's going to kill 25,000 Americans. But if none of them are alive, then we don't know, right? It's the same, you know, it's like these guys, it's like Thomas Crooks. Like Thomas Matthew Crooks, right? These people, oh, sorry, they're not alive anymore. We get to tell about it. So we'll just tell you at the Pentagon what the truth is, right?
Well, the U.S. has lost its proxy war with Russia and Ukraine. That's very, very clear now. And so what they're doing is they're careful not to take on another peer enemy, a peer adversary. And clearly some guys in a boat, whether or not they have drugs in the boat, are not peer adversaries. So they can take a big W in the ledger sheet. They can compare it to Panama whatsoever and put in a quick win. But, you know, I spent a lot of time around neocons in D.C., trust me, and I know how they operate. And they've got President Trump's ear. They've backed him in a corner, as they always do. They did it very easily to Bush to George W. Bush after 9/11. Mr. President, this is going to be a cakewalk. It'll be an easy thing to do. Don't worry about it. The war will pay for itself. They are relentless. They never back down. And that's why it's so disturbing that Trump has so many neocons, including people like Marco Rubio, whose entire life's purpose is to overthrow the governments of Venezuela and Cuba. That's his life purpose. And you can imagine the constant haranguing of President Trump. And now he's backed into a corner. What's he going to do? I mean, I'm not a military person, but you can only leave the troops and the equipment out there for so long because they're at up tempo. They can't sustain that for this long before you have to do something. And that's when they've got him. Mr. President, you're going to look weak if you don't do something. You can't just put your tail between your legs and go home and we'll be defeated by Venezuela. Think about the midterm elections. Think about what the Democrats will do. It's a disaster of their own making.
You know, you've warned for years about emergency powers or temporary emergency powers, something you and Congressman Ron Paul, Dr. Ron Paul, have talked about a lot because they always seem to become permanent. Do you see this like new maritime policy as another example of like the militarization of law enforcement under the like a banner of national security? We've got new maritime laws that give the president these extrajudicial killing powers.
Well, and Pam Bondi said she's putting in the National Guard in every city in America. So, yes, it definitely is expanding the militarization of our police everywhere. And of course, future administrations will love having this power. They'll love the fact that, you know, they loved it after the Patriot Act. President Obama loved the Patriot Act. He loved using it against American citizens. And the same thing will happen with this. But, you know, the thing, Clayton, is that the same people who rightly complained about the floods of refugees, and we've seen what happened now with the tragic shooting over the weekend, this fellow who was trained to kill by the CIA, who was trained to be a ruthless killer. Well, because he helped us, we let him in. And what did he do? He practiced his trade as a ruthless killer. You think that we're not training ruthless killers in Venezuela as we speak to perform the same tasks? If you don't want a flood of people, some of whom may be ruthless killers, then the answer is to stop engaging in this neocon regime change wars because it only produces rotten fruits.
Well, we know the CIA has been active, to your point, very active in Venezuela, confirmed multiple times, and we've confirmed it separately here on the show. And so they've been in there, of course, running drugs. The only drugs that are really coming out of Venezuela are being run by the CIA. And the people, these narco-terrorists, the reason we pretend to know that there's narco-terrorists there is because we trained them, for crying out loud. It's hilarious how this works, isn't it?
And the idea that this is a war against narco-terrorism, and many of us who are appalled by what's happening in our inner cities with drug use, it's been completely undercut by President Trump himself with the pardon of one Orlando Hernandez, who brought in, 400 tons of cocaine flooding the streets of the United States, and President Trump has just pardoned him. And, you know, one of the other things about this, Clayton, is that this is not simply about the war on drugs. A lot of it has to do with the so-called Isaac Accords. And that is all of Latin America getting on board to support Israel first. And that was started, of course, by Milei in Argentina, who said he's moving his capital of course, to Jerusalem. Machado, the Nobel Peace Prize winning person waiting in the wings in Venezuela, has also said the exact same thing. And the same is true in Chile, I believe, and probably now in Honduras, that the election appears to have been rigged in favor of Trump's candidates. Something else is going on besides the war against drugs, and it's about lining up the governments of Latin America to be proxies of Israel in the region.
Right. And now you have Russia and China saying they're kind of stepping back. So I think you're right about that. The CIA's deep involvement here. People in the chat room are like, of course. I knew it was the CIA. Of course it's the CIA and the meddling here. I really think we are, a country sadly in massive decline. You know, I'd love to think about liberty in this country, but I really think, what does Dr. Ron Paul think about the state of liberty? I mean, your whole show is called the Liberty Report. Where is it? Is it a gone cause now in the United States?
I don't think it's gone, but it's suffering some blows. People would like to, they would like to trade a little bit of their liberty for security. And the fact is you're left with neither if that happens. And what Dr. Paul actually said on the show today is this is a case of blowback. You're training people, the CIA is training people in these countries. You get blowback. They are over here. This is what he said about a 9/11 because we were over there. And we haven't learned these lessons. We can't keep going over there and fomenting this kind of chaos and not expect it to come back to our shores.
Here's some ripping in the background, Daniel, because maybe, Philip, you can take the slider cam shot here if you would, because we just got this for the studio. It's about to go up on our walls. Any society that will give up a little liberty to gain a little security will deserve neither and lose both. Benjamin Franklin.
Awesome.
Well, and
awesome.
it's also shocking to me how many people are buying into the we've had the same narrative. How many times do we have to be lied into a war before people see the pattern? Like, how can, like, I just don't understand how that's like this. No, this is different. This is different. No, it's not.
Well, yeah, I mean, because most of these people watch Fox News, and they're just part of this manufacturing. We saw it with the Iran hit, right? The 12-day war with Iran, like Sean Hannity out there saying this is the greatest moment for America. We just destroyed their entire nuclear arsenal. No, you didn't. You're lying. But you're going right back to your Iraq War playbook right on national television. So these people tune in to CNN or Fox News. And that's why, and they suppress our show and independent media, because unless if you're not a cheerleader, you won't be amplified. You'll be suppressed. That's at the heart of it, right, Daniel?
Well, these programs are completely corrupted by generals who are on the take, who are getting paid to go up there and talk up these wars. They're representing the military-industrial complex. Thank God for shows like The Redacted, and it's wonderful to see it grow because people are realizing they're being served a shit sandwich and being told it tastes good, and It doesn't taste good anymore. We want to have a turkey sandwich for a change. Damn it!
Right. When you've got General Jack Keane on Fox News and General, we want to go to you. What's the latest happening here with Venezuela? Of course they're on the payroll, and they get put airtime when we go to war. I mean, that's part of the process. I mean, it's deeply disturbing and deeply disgusting, but our audience is awake and hopefully aware of this and not falling for this propaganda. And I know your audience is awake as well. You must watch the Liberty Report with Daniel McAdams and Ron Paul. It's a great show. I mean, just you want to cut through the smoke and the bullshit and the shit sandwiches. Tune in to Daniel. Daniel, great to see you as always. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to see you guys.